It's Wednesday, 2 July in the year of our Lord 2025. There's a very dramatic activity on the floor of the House as the big, beautiful bill. Actually, they try to pass an amendment to a rule and then pass the rule, so they actually vote on the bill and debate it tonight. And I imagine they're going to try to go through the night. Officials from the White House have just gone and briefed certain members of the House Freedom Caucus. Russ Vought's been down there. I think he's back now at OMB. We're honored to have the Secretary of Treasury, Scott Bessent, with us. Mr. Secretary, I think it was about a year ago, April, May of 2024, you made the statement here on the show that, hey, I think this is the last chance we'll ever have, the country will ever have, to have a supply-side solution to the economic and financial problems of the country. My belief is that's gotten kind of lost here in the last couple of days as the Senate dealt with this bill and now the House deals with this bill. You have all this discussion about structural changes in the out years and CBO. I think people have lost the plot. This is about growth. It was always about growth, and about growth that grows faster than the deficits, faster than debt, and gets you on the plan to go from 6% deficit to GDP down to 3%. Can you just step back for a second and walk us through what the overall economic and financial plan that is embodied, manifested in this piece of legislation that we're trying to get pushed over the goal line either late tonight or tomorrow, sir?
Steve, good to see you. And it's good to be on because the War Room audience is my favorite audience. So I miss being on. And you hit the nail on the head. This is a growth agenda. As I said last year, I was really worried that the economy, the Democrats were tying the economy down. It was kind of like Gulliver and the Lilliputians. And the more they did, the more they regulated, we were never going to be able to grow our way out of this. And I'm going to focus on tax. But as I've said before, President Trump's economic agenda is a three-legged stool. So trade, tax, and deregulation. And on Friday, I think we made great progress in the House today. And I've got to say, these Freedom Caucus congressmen and a couple of senators have reset the center of gravity in terms of the spending. They're holding people's feet to the fire. And, I think that we are going to have economic growth like we haven't seen before. And here, this bill has something for everybody. But one of the main parts is the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act that was 100% expensing of capital goods. So we've added 100% expensing for factories and agricultural structures. So we're going to have this boom in the country that it could be growth like we haven't seen since post-World War II, since the 1890s, at least back to the 1990s. And we are making the U.S. the best destination for capital. You're going to have tax certainty because we're never going to have to listen to this twaddle again that these are the biggest tax cuts in history, because it's going to become the baseline. They are permanent. And the power of this permanence and giving people certainty, I think, is going to drive a lot of growth. So we're going to have tax certainty, cheap energy, and we are going to deregulate and make it possible for long-term projects for private sector and the public sector to do what we should be doing in terms of our long-term electricity needs, our fossil fuel needs, for businesses to be able to have great certainty and make long-term investments.
You make a good point that I think is lost on people. I want to go through it right now, that if you look at Biden with the massive spending they had and the huge deficits, the real economy, if you took out the federal spending, the economy was in a recession and had been in a recession. One of the things you said you and President Trump were focused on doing was reprivatizing the American economy. Can you explain that to folks, what that means?
Yeah, it means the pulling down, exactly as you just said, pulling down this government spending and letting the private sector take over. The private sector got crowded out. And I was on Friday, I was with the Senate Republicans at lunch, and one of the senators said, you know, I used to be in the luxury car business, and I'll tell you that my biggest clients were the people who were feeding off the IRA and the Green New Deal, and they would come into my showrooms and they were buying Porsches, Maseratis, Rolls Royces, and they were laughing at everybody in Congress and how much money they had taken. So like these subsidies, and these are just stranded assets that are going nowhere. One of the biggest as I said, I had very good conversations with the Freedom Caucus members yesterday. I'm sure that they are going to get to yes on behalf of the president, on behalf of the American people. But I told them one of the biggest changes between the House and the Senate was the House, when the bill left the House, full expensing for factory equipment, farm equipment, any business equipment was only for 5 years. The Senate made it permanent. So that was probably another $400 billion scoring over the 10-year window. And I said, guys, you know what? If this were some dead-end government spending program, I would be the first to raise my hand. This is sound economics. So I believe that we are going to see business resurgence. President Trump has talked about the trillions of dollars that want to come in from overseas. I have been out on the road. I've been meeting with business leaders, and they've all been waiting to start their CapEx until they have the certainty that they're going to know here. So I think this could be a private sector boom like we haven't seen in years.
And that's what it was structured for. You've got full spectrum energy dominance to lower energy costs. You've got the changing in commercial relationships internationally with the tariffs or trade deals. Either we'll reshore the factories here and get the tax revenue from production here and from incomes here, or we'll get the $300 to $400 billion that even CBO is forecasting you'll get over and above that on tariffs. You have massive deregulation, deconstruction of the administrative state. All of it comes together in one package. And here's the thing I like. President Trump already has a track record of hitting 2.8%. That was the average over his first 3 years before the bioweapon from China hit us. But people forget the fourth quarter of 2019 was 3.4%. He had hit surge, he had hit the surge. He had hit the inflection point. Is that the type of thing that you're anticipating here where you get all these things coming together? And it's going to take a while, obviously, to pull it together. But you see that we could get growth north of 3% again? Because if the United States doesn't get the 3% growth, the project itself doesn't overall work, correct?
It doesn't, but I am confident that we can. And Steve, I know you want to focus on the one big beautiful bill today, but I will say one of the things that President Trump has done with this trade agenda that no one has noticed yet, and it's going to become very obvious, we're going to start talking about it, for 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, the trade negotiators were willing to sacrifice the manufacturing base. We want, as your friend Larry Fink said, in a good quote, capitalism without guardrails. We want capitalism without guardrails. We'll lose our manufacturing sector. We will not have any tariffs, but in return, we will sell you ag. So there was this false choice between manufacturing and ag, and the trade deals now, because President Trump was very aggressive with the Liberation Day tariffs, we are getting a tariff wall up that is going to help our manufacturing sector, and part of our trade negotiations is selling them ag. So it is possible. President Trump has shown, and we are going to reap the benefits, that we're going to get both. We're going to have a revitalized precision manufacturing sector with good, high-paying jobs that allow families to save for the future, own homes, and the agricultural sector is going to do great. With the announcement of the Vietnam deal today, corn, soybeans are up 2 or 3%. So what had happened in the past is over, and both sectors are going to do well.
The capital markets right now are looking at this and are responding. Equity markets, S&P 500 reaching all-time highs. The bond market looks like they're accepting this. In fact, maybe even welcoming this. 10-year treasuries are down. Credit spreads are tight. It looks like we're going to go to Brazil here next with Philip Patrick, but you've a little bit chop blocked the global South and their efforts to get off the dollar. Do you agree with that? The capital markets are receiving the more they understand about the big, beautiful bill. They like what they see?
Steve, of 35 years in the markets live in the future. And occasionally markets panicked. We had this huge panic right after Liberation Day, up from, say, April 2nd to April 9th. After that, we had the fastest recovery in stock market history for a 15% drawdown. I believe it was 54 days. We'd never seen that before because a bunch of folks in New York who didn't like tariffs panicked. The market now sees through this and sees how good this is going to be for the economy. The one big beautiful bill is going to power us. And back to your point, not only did we have by the fourth quarter of 19, did we have the high growth level, it was not inflationary growth. So the inflation level for President Trump's first term was around 2%, right at the Federal Reserve target, and we're on our way back there. And this false narrative on the tariff inflation, that was really the dog that didn't bark.
I know you got to bounce. The Warren Posse is so glad to see you back. Good luck tonight.